The ASICS Gel Kayano 33 is here, and it's had a major makeover compared to the previous iterations of this. And if you're like us on the channel who've been a major fan of the 31 and the 32, you might be in for a bit of a shock with this version. I'm going to break down the specifications, the good and the bad when it comes to walking and running, and I'm also going to compare it to other max stability shoes like the Hoka Gaviota 6 and the Brooks Glycerin GTS 23. So first of all, let's look at what's underneath your feet. Well, we've got 39mm of cushion in the rear foot, 31 in the forefoot, giving you an 8mm drop. There's two different types of cushioning in this version, the FF Blast Max cushioning which sits on top, and the FF Blast Plus cushioning which sits underneath. Now the FF Blast Max, for those of you who are familiar with ASICS, will know that that's the bouncy, energetic cushioning that we see in the Nova Blast series, while underneath the FF Blast Plus is focused on cushioning and comfort. Now the layout and geometry of this is really important, which we'll touch on in a moment, but let's move on to underneath the shoe where we've got a hybrid ASICS grip, and moving up the shoe we've got sidewalls on the outside and the inside, but most importantly we have a new FluidSupport technology which is different from the classic 4D guidance system that we saw on the Kayano 31 and 32. Now that really changes how it provides stability and how it feels underfoot. On top of the shoe, we've got a classic engineered plush upper, we've got a classic fit in terms of being a true to size and length, and it comes in a wide and an extra wide version as well. The tongue is thin and semi-gusseted, there's lots of padding around the heel counter and a nice pull-on tab as well, beside a rigid heel counter. Now it provides stability through the sidewalls on the outside and inside and the rigid heel counter. They come up, wrap around your ankle, helping to control pronation moments when you initiate contact with the ground. There's a broad-based support underneath the shoe, which increases the amount of contact that you have with the ground, and some sole flare, which is where the sole comes out wide and where your foot sits in the shoe. All of these factors contribute to increasing the stability within the shoe. So it's now focused on keeping you centered in the shoe as you move. And I will release a video in a couple of days time talking about the major differences in the stability systems between the Model 33 and the Model 32 for those of you who are interested. Now the compounds of the two cushioning really make it more for walking than running in my opinion. We've got more cushioning on the inside of the arch of the foot, which is the slightly softer cushioning, and we've got less on the outside. So that means they try and focus on tilting your foot slightly, so a slight wedge is built into the shoe. Now we felt that was present in the GT 2000 version 14, and we see that in some of the New Balance series in the 860 as well. So your foot might feel like it's got a slight tilt outward. That will be beneficial for those of you who get issues on the inside of your heel, but it won't be as good for those of you who have some ankle instability issues because it's putting a little bit of pressure on the outside of your foot. So it's a really interesting change that we see here, and personally not one that I really agree with because there wasn't many issues with the 4D guidance system. Now the blend of the two cushionings mean that it's not as bouncy, not as peppy, and doesn't have as much spring to it. As a result, I think it's better placed for walking. You got the hybrid ASICS grip underneath, so you know you're getting really good traction whether the ground's wet or slippy, and on top you're getting a nice plush upper, and the fit is quite standard overall, so really enjoyed that. However, I want to talk to you about the downsides of this shoe because I think they probably outweigh the good in this model. So first of all, it's a heavy, clunky shoe. The weight is dropped a tiny bit, but it's still relatively heavy overall. The cushioning is really disappointing. You would think with the FF Blast Max cushioning added that it would be really bouncy, really springy, but that's simply not the case here. It's really flat underfoot and doesn't give you much energy return. One of the main reasons for this, or culprits, I think is the heel bevel at the back. It's quite clunky, so when you initiate contact with the ground you get a little bit stuck there before you move forward. It feels like you got a bit more ground contact feel at the front of the shoe, and I wouldn't be surprised when the shoe gets cut open by run repeat if you've got less cushioning underneath the forefoot than what they say. Then the midfoot support system is nowhere near as good as what we've seen in the past. So if you're someone who relies on having arch support, this is no longer the shoe that will give it to you. In fact, it feels really rigid and stable on the heel when you initiate contact, but it doesn't feel like you've got as much support underneath the arch of your foot. Then towards the forefoot, you got lots of stability because you've got a broad base and the sole flare. So I'm a little bit disappointed with the stability features that we always associated with the Kayano series. Then as we move up on top of the shoe, the widths aren't a problem, but because they've kept this thick, plush upper, it means that it's not very breathable. So if you're running in the summer or in a hotter climate, your foot is going to be a little bit hot in this shoe. And then when it comes to best use cases, well, as we touched on before, I think this is going to become a big walking shoe for a lot of people. It's heavy, it's clunky to run in, but it gives you some centralized support system, and it's a really broad base. So it's going to be a comfortable shoe for walking around all day or for standing. When it comes to running, well, it's going to work best as a recovery shoe, an easy pace shoe. It's definitely not a shoe for picking up the pace. It's not a fun shoe to run in my opinion. And it gives you a unique type of support that we see in a few shoes on the market. So overall, I think ASICS have made a little bit of a mess of this series by blending the two cushionings together and just getting the geometry a little bit wrong. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on that. And if we think of how it compares to other max stability shoes in the market, well, compared to the Gaviota 6, it has a little bit more cushioning under the forefoot, it comes in a little bit lighter, and the cushioning is slightly deceptive. It's a little bit firmer underfoot, but actually when you walk and you run in it, it gives you a little bit more energy return than what you get in the Kayano 33. It has a H-frame support system to provide stability as opposed to the new FluidSupport system that we see in the Kayano. I think the H-frame support system does a much better job at keeping your foot centered in the shoe as you move without feeling too rigid or too intrusive. The fluid technology, I don't feel they're just there yet. Maybe the next iteration might be a better model of this, but for this version 33, I don't feel it's as smooth and providing support to the whole shoe as what we get in the Gaviota 6. So when it comes to use cases, both of them are good shoes for walking all day, but if you want a support shoe that keeps you centered in the shoe without a tilt, the Gaviota 6. If you want a max cushion shoe that you can do some longer miles in, I would prefer the Gaviota 6 as well. And then when it compares to the Glycerin GTS 23, well, towards the heel of the Glycerin 23, they made a little bit of a mess of that in terms of making it extremely rigid, and it doesn't facilitate a normal movement pattern of your ankle. So the Kayano 33 is a little bit better on that initial contact phase, and it is a slightly lighter and firmer shoe in the Kayano. However, if you're looking for a really rigid support system with the guide rails of the Brooks, which keep you centered in the shoe, give you rigid support and a form of arch support, then we'd look towards the Glycerin GTS 23. If you're looking for a shoe that tries to keep you centered in the shoe with a little bit of a tilt, then you might look towards the Kayano instead. When it comes to use cases, they're very similar. They can be used for walking and standing all day, but with the Glycerin GTS 23, you are getting a little bit more bounce and a little bit of a smoother transition when you run, while they both cover easy and recovery runs as well. But let me know your thoughts overall in the comment section below. You're going to pick up the 33? Do you want to know more about how it compares to the 32? I'm going to do a full breakdown and comparison of all the features of these at the weekend. And always, if you watch the channel but you haven't subscribed yet, please do, as it makes a significant difference to the channel.